Hey, what's up? This is Chosen. It has been a day, but I'm finally in the studio here a couple hours late, and we've got some balance changes coming down, so I want to get that covered for you here on the channel and give you my insight and my take on these balance changes and if they are significant, if we will see any champions that become a must book or really change their spot within the game and within the meta of Raid Shadow Legends. So we're going to talk about Black Knight, Juliana, Romero, and get all of these balance changes. We have also got Aina in there as well. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so first off, right out the gate, we have got a very important change coming to Black Knight because we are going to be changing the main stat that the damage scales with. Now, switching this from HP or from attack to HP is something that should have happened a long time ago. Black Knight is a legacy champion, which means that Black Knight is a champion that was in the launch of Raid and wasn't added at a later date. Like some of these newer champions, Siffy and stuff that's come out after release as part of events or whatever. Black Knight has been here since the beginning, and we need to get some of these champions at scaling with the proper stat. When you've got a champion that you're going to be defaulting to stack them with defense or HP as a tank, really no reason to have them scale their damage with attack. You will see it sometimes on support champions like Bad Alcazar, where you're not going to build them as a damage dealer, so it makes sense that the attack at least gives them something, and whatever, in that case, I get it, but in a champion like Black Knight, it makes sense to have it scale with HP, so I'm glad they're finally going to be changing these from attack to HP. Well, actually, the A1 already scaled with HP. It was just this hard-hitting last breath ability that scaled with attack still, but at least they're going to be getting that right, and it will scale with HP soon. And that is actually the only change coming to Black Knight. Now, a lot of you may not know this, but Black Knight actually has a really cool role in the game, a 2-turn cooldown. Continuous heal and increased defense that it only needs one book to hit that 2-turn cooldown. That's very rare. Cooldown abilities that are placing buffs or debuffs on a 2-turn cooldown are exceedingly rare in the game. Usually 3 is the lowest that these A2 and A3s go for the cooldown when it has an AoE effect. So that is very cool. It's going to be you're almost going to be keeping up the permanent continuous heal and increased defense buffs on your whole team, making Black Knight a very good tank for things like faction wars and also for some of those Iron Twins compositions where you're just trying to keep something like a Geomancer alive, placing a bunch of the continuous heals and keeping the increased defense up permanently. Now, does it actually change Black Knight's rating in the game? Not really. It's not like he's going to go from a C to an S, but definitely a good change that makes a decent legendary a little bit better. And Raid, as we approach 750 champions, the game is really becoming about being good at a certain niche, and I think Black Knight's going to be pretty good at doing that, so I think this is a cool change. Not every legendary can be a top 5 legendary in the game. It's not mathematically possible, but I do think this is a pretty solid and welcome change to Black Knight. Next up is Juliana getting a change to the A3. Now, funny little Raid History 101 that we like to do here on the channel. Juliana was a very sought-after epic in the very, very early days of Raid. I'm talking like the first 3 months the game was out. Remember, no one knew what they were doing, and no one was running unkillable comps or anything like that. And people really wanted Juliana for the multi-hitter A1 because everybody was only using Giant Slayer for the clan boss. There was no War Master Mastery, and then she was also doing the HP burn at a booked up 100%, and it was for 3 turns, not the typical 2. So Juliana was actually like a top 20-ish epic in the early days of Raid because everybody wanted her in one of their standard early to mid-game clan boss teams for the multi-hitter A1 and the super consistent HP burn, and she can actually hit decent if you build her for damage. But the change that is going to be coming for Juliana is the Fire of Purgation, and we're going to be reducing the cooldown from 5 to 4, which absolutely needs to happen. It's kind of a ridiculous ability with the 7 books and all of these buff chances at 5 apiece. They need to crunch a couple of those 5% and make them a 10%, because one ability should never take 7 books. But anyway, they're going to be lowering that from 5 to 4, which definitely needed to happen to stay current with the times in Raid. A 5-turn cooldown for a single target ability that does HP burn is just way too long. It needs to be 4, so that's good. And then it's also going to be removing all buffs from the target instead of just one random buff. So that actually becomes a pretty solid ability on a 4-turn cooldown, the full buff strip, and then also the 100% chance for HP burn. Which means, similar to Black Knight, I don't think Juliana jumps up the board to, 1 or 2 completely different tiers, but it is definitely a good change, and it's going to make her better at the role that she is meant to perform. Then Romero getting some changes as well, and Romero, Juliana are a tandem. Obviously, one can deduce that they are built on Romeo and Juliet. You've got Romero and Juliana, Romeo, Juliet, etc., etc. But anyway, getting 2 different changes here on the A2 and the A3. We are getting a cooldown from 5 to 4, and then also from 5 to 4 here. This is going to be, are they going to be adding a book to this, or how's this going to be work? Because it does already have a cooldown book. Because it's a little bit weird. It says cooldown decreased from 6 to 5 and then 4 when booked. Okay, so yeah, they are just going to change this to a 5 and leave the 1 book. Okay, that makes sense then. Sorry, I was reading that wrong for a second. But anyway, we've got the A2 here first. We've got just the cooldown, and then it's going to steal 1 buff from each enemy. That's actually pretty impactful because we're booking this down to a 3-turn cooldown, and it's going to be placing continuous heal for 2 turns, plus not removing, but stealing 1 random buff from every enemy. That's actually a really strong ability for an epic now. And then also getting the cooldown and the big version of increased defense is obviously a change that needs to happen. We can't have epics with the baby version of increased defense, especially when it's only on themselves. And so far, based on the 3 different champions that we've taken a look at, I think Romero's changes are the most significant. These are pretty big for Romero. He already is tanky, has 1300 base defense, and scales the A1 damage with defense. He's not going to be built as some insane damage carry, so it doesn't really matter. But he is going to be tanky. He is going to be a shielder, a healer, a buff stripper. He's going to be a really good Faction Wars epic for some of those early game, mid game accounts. It may be worth building a Romero for your Sacred Order team, and he actually has some general utility as well as a healer and a shielder. So yeah, Romero definitely jumping up from like probably a C tier epic to probably like a B tier epic. He's actually moving up a tier. Then lastly, we have got Aina of the Barbarians. Now we're going to be getting a change. They combined, it looks like they combined the A1 and the A2 on here, but we have got the A1 that is going to have a 15% chance of granting an extra turn. That's actually a big buff. Going up 5% when the default is 10 is actually a big change. It's like a 50% buff. The 10% chance turning into 15, and we can actually buff that up to 20. So pretty solid A1 there because you got a multi-hitter with a 20% when booked chance of granting an extra turn, which is like a built-in relentless set on your A1, which is nice. And then the A2 is also going to be getting the cooldown taken from 5 to 3. Again, a single target ability like this cannot be in a 5-turn cooldown. That has been way power crept out of the game, so that is good. They're removing this from 5 to 3, and it makes her a pretty solid option for Faction Wars because placing the weaken permanently on boss fights and stuff like that and enemies you're trying to take down is really good. And then we're also getting a cooldown reduction to keep the A3 in line as well, which means she's going to place both defense down and weaken, and she's also going to have self-sustain, like a built-in lifesteal set, a built-in relentless set. So again, I think Aina is getting significant changes as well, and probably moving up a tier just like Romero, maybe from like C- to B, something like that. She's going to be great for mid-game accounts that are building a Barbarians Faction Wars team. She can be the damage carry because of the defense down and the weaken, the self-heals. She has a bonkers attack for an epic champion at almost 1500. So Aina definitely going to be a solid option as well. So yeah, always exciting to get some balance changes. I wish stuff like this would be a little bit more often, or involve more champions. Like if you're only gonna do it once every month or two, I wish it would involve like 10 to 12 champions, or just do minor adjustments like this every 2 weeks or so, because it's kind of fun to see what's evolving, who's getting buffed, and all of that. So I'm always down to see more changes when you've got 750 champions almost in the game. I think it's like 730 something, but we're approaching 750 really quick, so it's always fun to see them adjusted and see some of those older legacy champions get brought up to the current power creep of Raid and how it's functioning. We're approaching 4 years here pretty soon on Raid, so I believe all of these are legacy champions. In Black Knight, Juliana, Romero, and Aina, I think all of them were in the game on release. So a lot of these legacy champions being brought up to the current scheme of things. But yeah, I think mostly Black Knight and Juliana are good changes, but they're not going to really change their tier of how they rank in the game. And then Romero and Aina definitely got really strong changes and probably went from like a C tier to a B tier. I think it'd be fun, you know, now that I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, I think it'd be fun to just get like an overall ranking of every champion. Like it'd be fun to kind of pull up a list and say like Black Knight is legendary number 76. Oh, and now I think maybe that Black Knight went from 76 to 59 or something like that. It'd be really tough to pull off a list like that because everybody's going to have different... That's why we have a tier list, I guess. But anyway, it'd be fun to boil everything down to like actual rankings and have that list. So I may try to work on something like that with a few different content creators or something and partner up on that, because it'd be a fun list to get out there. But anyway, let me know what you think about the balance changes down below. And all in all, I think it's... you know, I'd give Plarium like a B for this. You know, I think it could have been a little bit more robust, a little bit better, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with these changes coming to champions, and I think some of them are going to be an option to build for some accounts out there. So that'll do it for me on this one. Remember to subscribe on your way out if you enjoy daily Raid Shadow Legends content, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.